Imagine getting pulled over for no reason, only for things to take a horrifying turn. That's exactly what happened to Marcus, a man just trying to get home. The officer walked up, eyes filled with something more than authority, something dangerous. A routine stop, not even close. Within minutes, the situation spiraled. Words turned into threats, and suddenly, Marcus found himself watching his own car engulfed in flames. But there was one thing the officer didn't know. Marcus wasn't just any driver. He was an undercover FBI agent. As the fire crackled and the officer stood there satisfied, Marcus remained calm. He had been trained for moments like this. He knew something the officer didn't. Justice was coming. What happened next would change everything. Because when you think you have power over someone, you better be sure who you're dealing with. Stay tuned. This story is just getting started. Marcus stood still, the heat from the fire warming his face, but his expression never changed. The officer smirked, convinced he had just put another man in his place. To him, Marcus was nobody, just another person to intimidate, another car to destroy, another night of unchecked power. But what he didn't realize was that Marcus had seen men like him before. He had spent years studying them, investigating corruption from the inside. And tonight, he wasn't just a victim, he was a witness. The officer turned back toward his squad car, reaching for his radio, probably to spin the story in his favor. Marcus remained calm, his hands still, his heartbeat steady. He had no doubt the officer had done this before. The question was, how many others had suffered in silence? But Marcus wasn't like the others. He wasn't here to be silenced. He was here to expose the truth. The officer spoke into his radio, his voice steady, controlled, like he had done this 100 times before. Suspect's vehicle caught fire during the stop. Driver is uncooperative. A lie, effortless and practiced. Marcus watched him, memorizing every movement, every word. This wasn't just about him. It was about every person before him who didn't have the power to fight back. A second patrol car pulled up, lights flashing against the dark night. Another officer stepped out, glancing at the burning car before locking eyes with Marcus. There was something different in his gaze, hesitation, maybe even doubt. Did he know? Or was he just another part of the system? Marcus could feel the moment tightening around him. He had choices. Play the role they expected, just another victim, or take control. But timing was everything. He had come too far, seen too much. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Marcus remained still, his expression unreadable, but inside, every second felt like a countdown. The first officer, still convinced he held all the power, took a step closer. "You're gonna regret this," he muttered, his voice low enough for only Marcus to hear. But Marcus didn't flinch. He had dealt with far more dangerous men, ones who didn't hide behind a badge. The second officer shifted uncomfortably, stealing another glance at the burning car. "What happened here?" he asked, his voice uneasy. The first officer scoffed. "Resisting arrest. Car caught fire in the struggle. Another lie. Smooth, rehearsed." Marcus exhaled slowly. He had all the information he needed. Every word, every action. He had been documenting it in his mind from the moment those red and blue lights flashed behind him. But the real question was, how far would they go? And more importantly, how would they react when they finally learned who he was? Marcus felt the weight of the moment pressing in, but he remained steady. He knew the officer was expecting fear, submission, anything that would justify what had already been done. Instead, Marcus met his gaze, calm and unshaken. The second officer shifted again, clearly sensing something was off. "We should call this in," he said hesitantly. The first officer shot him a sharp look. "I've got it under control." But before he could say anything else, another set of headlights appeared in the distance. The unmarked black SUV pulled up smoothly, its presence instantly changing the energy of the scene. The first officer stiffened. He didn't recognize the vehicle, but Marcus did. The door opened, and out stepped a man in a dark suit, his expression unreadable. Without hesitation, he walked straight toward Marcus and spoke just 2 words that changed everything. "Agent Calloway." The first officer's smirk vanished. Now, he realized, he had made a mistake he couldn't take back. Silence fell over the scene as the first officer's face drained of color. His eyes darted between Marcus and the man in the suit, struggling to process what had just been said. "Agent," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "That's right, FBI." He took a step forward, watching as the officer's confidence crumbled. The second officer took a slow step back, suddenly wanting no part in what was about to unfold. The man in the suit, Marcus's superior, didn't waste time. "We've been investigating reports of misconduct in this area," he said, his tone sharp. "And tonight we got exactly what we needed." The first officer's hands twitched at his sides, as if debating whether to run or fight. But it was over. Before he could react, more unmarked cars appeared, their doors swinging open as agents stepped out. The officer had spent years thinking he was untouchable, but tonight he had set fire to the wrong man's car. The first officer stood frozen, his arrogance replaced by fear. The flashing lights from the approaching vehicles reflected in his wide eyes as the reality of his situation sank in. He had spent years bending the rules, believing he'd never face consequences. But tonight, his own actions had sealed his fate. Marcus watched as the agents moved in, placing the officer in handcuffs. The second officer, sensing his own career on the line, quickly stepped back, hands raised. He wasn't innocent, but he hadn't crossed the final line yet. As the fire from Marcus's car burned low, so did the officer's power. This wasn't just about one traffic stop. It was about accountability, about exposing the truth. Marcus took one last look at the man who thought he controlled the night, then turned away. Justice had a way of catching up, and tonight it finally had.